Hi everyone, this is Paul here from the Magdalene Centre. Today I'm doing the astrology report for the full moon in Sagittarius, which takes place on Monday the 17th of June at 9:30 am here in the UK, which translates as 8:30 am Universal Time. And I've outlined some of the key themes and areas of reflection that the full moon highlights, along with the few aspects that are made to the full moon that add their own flavour to it. Before I do that though, I just want to clarify, as I always do, that the astrology doesn't control our lives. It gives us a framework to help us understand what is unfolding around us. It helps us to recognise where the opportunities for growth are and where the natural direction of growth is, so that we can go with the flow. But from there, it's up to us to actually choose a course of action and to make sure that our choices are guided by wisdom and not just egoic impulses. Now, in terms of the full moon in Sagittarius, this is made up of the Sun in Gemini, so this has been a month-long theme of kind of exploring the rational mind, exploring our relationship with information, and looking at how we avoid the present moment through overthinking, if you like. So, at the higher end, it's all been about learning to move beyond thinking about everything and instead learn to be present, so be in the present moment, and so that we can learn to see the reality as it is, not how we think it is. So it's learning to create that space between the thoughts and learn to see reality as it is. But Gemini is also about gathering information, so it's all about the raw data, if you like, and beginning to synthesize it. So it's all about the thinking process, if you like. But if we're not careful, we can get stuck in the minutiae of life. We're so focused on the small details that we completely forget about the big picture, and we don't look to see how it's all interconnected, all part of a greater whole. So this is where the moon in Sagittarius comes in. Sagittarius is all about the big picture. It's about recognizing how everything slots together, how everything is actually interrelated, so nothing is actually separate, because it's moving towards that collective understanding, if you like, that capacity to see ourselves not just as a skin encapsulated ego along with all the labels that go with it, but as part of a greater whole. So it's the beginning of collective consciousness, but for us to tap into the higher levels of Sagittarius, it also requires that we be willing to question our own beliefs. So in some respects, Gemini is all about the questions that drive us. Sagittarius is the seeking of the answers and seeking to understand the broad picture, not just the fine details. So it's about microcosm and macrocosm, seeing the two together. Sagittarius is also about the natural laws that underpin everything. So Sagittarius also has a strong affinity with nature. So whereas Gemini in effect is a bit like the city, where there's a lot of mental stimulation, there's all kinds of things going on, it's very fast paced. Sagittarius is more about the natural world, or the connection to it, and it's sometimes we may feel this prompting to spend a bit more time in nature to kind of decompress, allow the rational mind to just naturally calm down a bit, and find that space within us that allows us to put everything into perspective. So rather than getting caught up in the rat race or getting caught up in all the fine details to the neglect of the bigger picture, is about taking that step back and seeking to put things into the right place, if you like, or to achieve that right level of understanding. So Sagittarius reminds us to hold a broader perspective in mind, or a higher vision, and it reminds us to put things into perspective. And with its strong affinity with the natural world, if you look at nature, it doesn't rush to accomplish anything. We're the only ones that are always rushing around pursuing goals of some kind and causing a lot of mental stress for ourselves. But when you look at nature and how it achieves all its aims but is never rushing to achieve them, and is always striking a balance between the different needs, it always finds that way to achieve a collective harmony. Yeah, there can be a bit of disruption when new information comes in, if you like, but ultimately nature has its own way of finding how to put everything in its own niche so that everything supports everything else. So with Sagittarius, it's about learning to let go of the kind of obsession over the small details. It's about letting go of all the constant thinking or the need to constantly be gathering more information, and it's a time to kind of synthesize it, to put it into perspective and see the broader picture. And it's also about learning to go with a natural flow, because underpinning everything in life there's a natural flow of energy, and when we're engaged with it, whatever we need is provided. If there's key piece of information that we need in order to understand something, it just seems to come to us in the right kind of way. Conversely, if we are constantly trying to control everything, so we drop out of the natural flow, they're naturally going to be stressing a lot more and always trying to have that feeling of there's never enough time in the day to achieve things. So if we're in a position where we're always stressing around, forgetting to take a step back and see the bigger picture, this full moon will prompt us to look into this and to seek to kind of take a step back and recharge again and put things into perspective so we don't sweat the small stuff. Now, the ruler of this particular full moon is Jupiter, and Jupiter is in his home sign of Sagittarius, so Jupiter has a particularly strong influence as such, being in his home sign, and Jupiter is retrograde at this time. So this is a time where there's a strong emphasis on going within and connecting with our own wisdom rather than relying on systemic ways or systemic thought, if you like. So what I mean by that is, rather than relying on the kind of beliefs that get handed down or any kind of ideology or system of views, if you like, it's learning to kind of take a step back and be honest with ourselves about, does that actually resonate with who we are, or have we allowed ourselves to suppress our own inner ethics or inner moral compass, and have we settled for kind of a sense of group belonging at the expense of the search for truth? Because Sagittarius is about connecting to those higher truths, but it's truth that we experience as an energy field, if you like, as opposed to a concept. So it's not thinking as such, it's that wisdom and that natural resonance that we experience when we encounter the truth, and it's learning to embody it. And Jupiter retrograde in his home sign at this time is encouraging us all to seek to understand the bigger picture, to understand the consequences of holding on to or adhering to beliefs that are not our own, and may bring us a security of sense of belonging, but do not actually allow us to grow properly, do not allow us to question our current understanding, becomes very dogmatic, as it were. So at the same time as looking to overcome any kind of rigid thinking or any obsessive thinking that causes us to stress ourselves out, it's also about recognising where we allow ideology or dogma to dictate how we perceive things or dictate our beliefs, and instead question them. It's about letting go of rigid ideology and instead learn to allow new experiences or new concepts which fundamentally challenge our underlying assumptions of the nature of life, and recognise when these new concepts or these new truths that we're encountering may actually be close to the full truth and our current understanding. So it's learning to be comfortable with cognitive dissonance, I guess, and rather than trying to fight the information, it's allow it to permeate without believing it straight off the bat, if you like. So it's not believing things blindly, it's allowing it to settle and become part of our consciousness if it fits with us. So if something is true, we know it because it resonates with us at some level. So it's moving beyond how we think things should be, and it's allowing the intuition to tell us whether a concept or a belief that we're encountering is on path for us, or if it will take us off path. And it's about learning to expand the mind beyond our current level of understanding, and to learn to achieve a more broad-mindedness, a capacity to see how everything is actually interconnected. We're all part of the same human family, as different as we are. And it's learning to overcome any judgmental tendencies or any tendencies to overthink things and stress ourselves out. So it's all about that right thinking, that right seeing, that right perception, or right speech, if you like. And we also have, to this particular full moon, a weak T-square caused by Neptune in Pisces. Neptune is also in his home sign, so this energy is particularly strong as well. And Neptune in Pisces is about encouraging us to surrender. It's about recognising that the consensual reality is not a true reflection of reality as it is, if you like. It's learning to allow reality to show itself to be as non-linear as it actually is, because reality doesn't conform to human logic. No matter how much we try to make it do that, reality is inherently non-linear. Everything happens in cycles, so for anything to be operating in a cycle, it can't be operating in a straight line by default. And it's also about learning to surrender any attachments to the physical world that prevent us from engaging with the flow. It's about opening the crown chakra up and allow the kind of intuitive guidance to guide us, and allow the higher order of things to make itself known to us. So how this is the guide for the full moon. The main things to remember is to reflect on whether or not our beliefs allow us to see reality more clearly, or whether our thinking is clouding our judgment. And it's also about learning to surrender to the flow, to move beyond the human need to control things and to obsess over dogma, and instead allow the natural timing of things to guide us, and allow wisdom to be the driving force rather than the pursuit of information. So it's kind of taking a step back from all that overload of information, and instead learn to trust the intuitive side as well, to help us bring all the information together and achieve a cohesive whole where it's based on an honest pursuit of truth and not just trying to make the world fit our understanding. So may the full moon in Sagittarius bring many new insights and many blessings. Take care.